collectors and action figure fans. Once again, it's the one and only Optibotimus coming at you with another video review. And on today's episode, thanks to the absolutely incredible support from the folks over at Mondo, we're going to be taking a little bit of an older look that really did excite me for the future of 1/6 scale X-Men figures. Building on their very successful 1/6 scale Batman the Animated Series line, X-Men the Animated Series line is easily poised to be as successful. Now what we're going to be taking a look at today is their 1/6 scale San Diego Comic-Con exclusive Wolverine, which gave us Wolverine a little bit differently than what the standard release gave us. For the package, you can see absolutely gorgeous images here with a whole bunch of different panels of several different X-Men characters. Like, for example, you got Wolverine right there, you have Professor X, Gambit, a lot of real cool ones on there. And that continues on as you look throughout the entire thing. You have Rogue, you have Beast, some real cool action shots coming around even more. You have Storm, a few more of Wolverine. Of course, Jean Grey, Cyclops. Very cool how they recreated this, basically panel by panel, kind of going through the intro of that original animated series show. I absolutely love what they did with this. Extremely, extremely creative. But this is the part that is the best. It is a slip sleeve style package that you can lift up just like that, revealing this. Basically, they took a meme and made it the exclusive version for their Wolverine figure, which is Logan laying on a bed in full outfit, looking at a photo of Jean Grey and Scott's. I mean, I love that. He's just pining over Jean Grey. That is fantastic. Super, super creative, super fun, and really makes me not want to open this at all. Of course, you got the X-Men the Animated Series logo right there. Side here has a very large image of that as well. You can also see that this was a exclusive in 2021 with the limited edition number right there. Come around to the other side of the box, same type of thing there. Come around to the back of the package. And this is the meme that it's kind of paying homage to, which the fact that they were able to do that is spectacular, in my opinion. I mean, that is truly amazing. And then you got the Mondo logo with Marvel there in the bottom. I'm just completely blown away by the fact that they were able to recreate this in such a fun kind of way. This is, in terms of presentation, 1000% on point. They nailed this. But being that this is a review, I gotta open it. I got to do it. I'm just going to be very careful when I'm doing it. So without further ado, let's get good old Wolverine out here and see how cool he actually is. And here we have the San Diego Comic-Con version of Wolverine from Mondo opened up and out of its packaging. And this is absolutely fantastic. Their Batman the Animated Series Batman completely blew me away. And Wolverine here has taken it to a whole new level. Getting a 1/6 scale representation of a very iconic character from, for me, one of the best animated shows really is spectacular. And I love the fact that they are continuing on with this line. Some time ago, they announced their Magneto figure, which hopefully I'll be getting mine fairly soon. But as of right now, when I'm recording this video, they've officially launched pre-orders for their 1/6 scale Jubilee from X-Men the Animated Series as well. So hopefully this is a line that goes on for a long time. Because as much as I love Marvel Legends, I truly do prefer 1/6 scale figures. Now, Marvel Legends do a great job of taking up less space, but I'm a big kid, and I love big toys. Now, starting off first with his accessories, you can see that in terms of the overall release of this compared to the regular version, you get basically everything. The only thing that I guess is different is you get a pillow with this. Now, unfortunately, opening this up, unless you were extraordinarily careful, which I was not, the box does get severely damaged. So in terms of recreating him laying down, you can do it, but it is very difficult. But you get a pillow, and it's got like this little cotton thing in here, so I'm going to keep this around just because that's kind of fun. But it's just a little cushiony kind of pillow. But everything else you do get with that regular version. So you do get the picture with the picture frame that he's looking at as well. So you can create kind of a pose like this, which I do like. Starting off first with that, taking a look at the picture, you can see that really nice detail on here. One thing that I love about it is you can actually remove it. Now, I don't know what you would do with it, but you can take that picture out, and it's this nice card that has very glossy image of Cyclops and, of course, Jean Grey on there. That's kind of just a cool little touch because it kind of makes it more realistic, which I dig. But you can see you got a really nice brown frame. You got a black and a little stand section right there. And then, of course, you do get the hands that allow you to kind of hold it. Now, what's interesting, though, is I feel like these hands here are basically, well, no, they're not. This is a little bit more of an open hand, as you can kind of see. This one is more just this, almost like a gun kind of hand. I don't know necessarily what you would use this with because he doesn't come with a gun. But you do get that, and then you can see that much like their Batman figure, you get this nice cell shading on here with the darker element and the lighter element, which really does recreate that cartoon look very, very nicely. You also do get a left hand here that is more open, which is very similar to the right hand that's currently on him. But again, you got that very nice cell shade. You can see that he has his little adamantium sections with some holes in here. Now, he does come with a both right and left hand with the adamantium claws extended. These cannot be removed though, so you are going to be stuck if you want to have him having these out, using them with these. You can see that it does get a little bit warped, but this is a little bit harder of a plastic, so just be careful if you're going to kind of try and stretch that out and get it a little bit more lined up properly. But you can't swap out the claws, which is unfortunate, but I don't mind it really all that much. You also do get a right hand that is designed more specifically to hold his giant turkey leg, which has some really just simple detail on here, but you can see that very nice molding on there as well. I mean, it does give you a very nice texture of looking like there's meat on there with the bones sticking out. Now, again, this is not an accessory that I'm really going to utilize in terms of the display form, but when you want to use this, you're just going to come around here and kind of spread out because the actual hands are very stiff. So you do have to be kind of careful when you're doing the, and I'm hitting things, so get that straightened up. But because of how, and I just kind of smeared some of that paint on there, which that'll probably come off fairly easily, but you just kind of wedge that in there like that, and now he can hold, and you can drop it. You can have him holding this turkey leg of sorts and have him kind of eating it like this, something like that. I suppose you could kind of do. But realistically, like I said, I'm not going to utilize this accessory, and that kind of brings me to one of the other minor problems. That you can see that the paint, though, does get kind of a little scratched up on there, so do be careful with that. Because of the way that the packaging is for this, I can't put any of these accessories back into storage because the box, like I said, is pretty much ruined at this point in time. So I wish they gave some other kind of way to kind of display these. All of these accessories were in little baggies that were underneath the couch in the package. So you could kind of just put these back up there if you kept that. A couple of the extra heads that are here came in these little clamshells, like one was here and one was here. So these kind of can store pretty decently, but there's no other real way to kind of store it. I wish that it was a little bit more secure of kind of a storage sort of thing, I guess. I mean, you are paying for that extra kind of collector sort of look with the packaging. I wish that they would have given us a little bit more of a reusable package so that we could still use that as a storage device. That's definitely something that I think that they could have improved upon. But in terms of the hands, you also do get this, which is really very cool. In the opening scene for X-Men, and I'll show that to you right now, you can see that Wolverine kind of comes in, has these claws that he puts together and goes, and it's like a, I don't want to say an energy effect because it's not really energy or anything, but it's just a graphic representation of his claws just shining or something. You can see that these little bits right here have a little bit more concentration of that kind of sparking element, and then you have all these little effects kind of going on recreating what you just saw. I love this. I think that this is super cool, very iconic, because like I said, it came from that opening scene, which I think is fantastic. Now, these are permanently attached. You cannot remove these, but they are basically the same as the ones that you have here. These actually look a little bit darker in terms of the coloring for it, but they are permanently attached, and you can't swap those out. So when you're going to be putting this in, you have to be a little bit careful when you're doing it. Put that in and then put the other one in. Kind of reminds me of that Kolinar Spock that I took a look at a little bit ago, where the hands are attached to each other. So you do just have to be a little bit more careful when you're doing it. But I love this. I think that this is really cool, and honestly will probably be what I used to display my Wolverine. So really very nice. And another thing that I absolutely love is the fact that he comes with a total of 5 different heads. The one that I had the least amount of interest in, but I still think is really cool, is a head portrait of animated Morph, which that looks really cool as well. Getting in here closer so that you can see it, you can see a lot of great paint elements on here, again giving that kind of cell shading with the darker elements around there. You got the eyes, you got some extra little details underneath his lip around the edges and stuff. Great detail on here though, and the hair looks really nice as well. I'm really impressed with this. Like I said though, I don't really think that I'm going to use this for anything, to be totally honest with you, but I love the fact that they give you options, and that's something that Mondo has done consistently with a lot of their 1/6 scale figures. This one is great and might come into play later on if they give us like a evil morph. I could see them doing that and then allowing us to have this head to kind of swap out with that evil morph to give us a more normal looking morph. I think that's really cool. But you get a couple other ones here. Like for example, you have Wolverine with a grimace. That looks cool with the fanged sort of look on his teeth. Gorgeous detail with the whole helmet, including these little flare pieces, which kind of sort of hold his hair, I suppose. But again, great detail, great shading. You can see a little bit of it there on the side. Overall, very well done in terms of recreating that animation look. You also do get just more of a neutral looking one, but again, that cell shading is very nicely captured. Even when you look at like the top section here, you can kind of see a little of the cell shading coming around here from the shadow of what would basically be his ears. That's a real nice attention to detail. You also do get this unhelmeted one. Now this one I think is probably the best looking. I think this looks fantastic. The way that they got the hair with the, again, the lighter blue, kind of again showing that cell shading, the mutton chops there along the side. The hair detail is extremely well done. Very, again, animation accurate. And then you got a little smirk or a little scowl on his face. It looks really great. Paint applications look really good with like the line work with the grimace around his eyebrows and such. The only thing that I wish that this one had would have been something that you could have wrapped around his like neck, as if he was pulling the mask and helmet off, kind of resting it around the back of the neck. That would have been a nice accessory to have as well, but I don't mind it. And then the other one that you get goes along with this whole thing with him looking very sad. Great sculpt on this. Different sculpt. A lot of people keep saying that it's the same sculpt, and you're full of crap if you think that it is. But when you look at this, you can see that the eyes are completely sculpted differently. The mouth positioning is sculpted slightly different. So the expressions are different between these two, even though the paint applications are basically the same. But I love the fact that it just captures him in a very, very unique state. We usually do not see Wolverine sad, but in that scene where he's looking at that portrait of Jean and Cyclops and seeing how happy they are and just being extremely depressed about it is fantastic, and it works so well with this figure. It's strange because that head sculpt really does kind of change the demeanor of him. You kind of want to have him slouched over, and all the articulation that is in this figure allows you to really kind of like hunch him over and just kind of get him droopy and just really change the overall presence of the entire toy, which I think is fantastic. And that's all mostly done because of the head sculpt and the articulation that's in him. Very well done. The other thing that he comes with is this display stand. Now, this is weird because I don't understand this. Now, the way that it kind of looks makes it kind of look like you just sit it right here, which I get, but it's I don't know. It's like at first I thought it was messed up because it kind of wants to go out like this, and then when you put it in there, it pulls the two halves together. So more often than not, action figures kind of go around the waist. This one doesn't. They might be kind of avoiding that just because they don't want to scratch the paint on there. So it's almost like this is designed to go like this so that you can just put that there. And it works fine in terms of getting them stand there. It just kind of helps to stabilize them. But it looks weird for the most part. I don't really understand it, but yeah, it is what it is. It does the job, but it is fairly generic in terms of the overall look. It's just a round base with nothing on it. The bottom section does have some little rubber tabs, which is nice, but then you just plug this in there, and generic. I do wish that there was a little bit more that was put in this, kind of like the Batman one, but it's not bad by any stretch of them, and it does what it really needs to do. So it doesn't bother me too terribly much, but it would have been nice to see a little bit, maybe just put like some print work on there or something. But like I said, it does what it needs to do in terms of kind of just helping to balance them there, although realistically he stands perfectly fine just by himself. But for the accessories on this guy, that's about it. He comes with a pretty good amount. I will tell you in a future Marvel Legends review, I will be showing you what I have planned for this piece. But now coming in to take a closer actual look at Wolverine himself, in detail wise, much like all those other portraits I showed you, the rest of the body carries on with that amazing amount of detail that accurately captures how Wolverine looked in that 1990s X-Men animated show. You can see again with that cell shading, they very nicely capture that kind of look with some darker elements. Even when you come around here to the side, you can see some of that darker yellow kind of gone through here. You got some different elements here with the blue. Even when you look at the musculature, you can see you have some shading done on there that really does highlight some of those very cool kind of cartoon looks on them. Everything on here looks great. I love how they just added some paint strokes to kind of represent his very hairy arms. His torso looks fantastic. The belt form looks really good. Again, you can see some of that cell shading done there as well. You got some nice line work throughout the entire thing, which, again, just highlights areas. Like, for example, you have these little lines that kind of go around highlighting what basically would be his muscles. That's all extremely well done. I've always loved also how his boots kind of mirror the way that his mask and helmet looks. Just really very, very cool. First articulation, the head section here is on a very good ball joint. You got a lower ball and then you have an upper one, so you get a little bit of hinging forward and back, and then you get a full rotation with them. Shoulders here do rotate pretty decently. These little pieces are fixed into place, so it does get a little bit tricky when you want to do a full rotation with them, but if you kind of bring it out a little bit, you can rotate that around, and you can see that you can get his arm kind of going outward and then doing something like that. So you can kind of mitigate that. And look at look at the muscle detail on there. Very, very well done. The elbows down here do have a rotation right at them, and then you also do have a very nice, is that about 90 degrees? That's about a 90 degree bend. But I like how they put the rotation down here because it doesn't break up the musculature that much. You can kind of see where it breaks it up a little bit. But if you had it up higher, it would have been far uglier of a rotation. So I like that they put it there. That's a good spot for it. You do have a diaphragm joint. You get a little bit of rotation, but mostly some flexing. You do get a rotation at the waist. And then again, in conjunction with that, you kind of get some extra posing options. Coming down to his hips, they do move forward and back, but this being a softer rubber, it is a little bit more limited in terms of how far you're going to go. It goes a little bit further back just because of the nature of that. Do get a little bit of rotation there. you do get 2 joints here at the knee, but it only really gives you about a 90-degree bend or so, but I like that. It's not overly ridiculous, but that is really well done. And then you come down to the ankles themselves. Those do have the forward and back joint in them. Also, you do have that hacky sack sort of pose, so you can kind of have them kick you sideways or something. So, a lot of real great detail on here, a lot of articulation that really does facilitate a lot of real cool poses that you can do with them. Honestly, I'm kind of torn on whether or not I want to have that pose with him kind of holding that little picture frame, or do more of that iconic pose like I showed a little bit with him sparking his claws together and creating that very cool look. I don't know. How about we take a look at, I showed you how he looked before, and I obviously still have the very sad face on there, so let's see how he looks more aggressive. Oh yeah, I found my pose. This is absolutely spectacular. One thing though that I have discovered, particularly with the Mondo figures as of late, is that the plastic that they use is very rigid, which means there's not a lot of give to it. So if you want to swap out heads, the best way to do it is to kind of blast this with a hairdryer for a few seconds, heat the plastic up, and then pop the head on, which is a little inconvenient, but I don't know a lot of people that constantly swap out the head, so it's not that big of a deal. The other thing that I've noticed, particularly in trying to get this pose, I wanted to have him be a little bit more squat, but the ankles, while they go back a pretty good amount, they don't really go forward very far, and I want to have him have a little bit more of a squat look to him. I mean, it's not bad as it is, but I want to have him a little bit lower. That's not terrible or anything, but just the way that the cut is here really prevents that ankle from bending a little bit more forward. Now, while that is kind of a negative, I appreciate that because it also does make him very sturdy on his feet. You don't have to worry about loose ankles or anything. But this is absolutely fantastic. Again, for the most part, everything that you see is what you would get with a standard release. Is what you would get with the standard release, with the exception of that pillow. So you're not really missing out one way or the other. But with what Mondo started with their Batman the Animated, and even going back, they've done 1/6 scale representations of other figures like the Ninja Turtles, which I've absolutely loved. They've continued to improve things, and Wolverine is definitely an example of that. One of the issues that I had with their Batman figure was not so much their problem, but a design flaw just in terms of the character model. Being very top-heavy with small feet made him difficult to kind of balance. This guy, though, because of the design of the character, has none of those issues. And Mondo nailed the look. Ignoring the presentation aspect of him, the figure itself is extremely well done. The detail on him is spot on. The paint applications, the sculpt work, all absolutely spectacular. In terms of accessories, there's not a ton that he really could come with, but I love the fact that they included something iconic like this little picture of Cyclops in Jean Grey. All the hands that you get really do allow you to kind of have a variety of different poses, even when you include just the regular version of his adamantium claws. With these, you can get some real cool action poses with them. This, though, is 100% how I'm going to display this guy, which means that I have 4 other heads that I don't really know what to do with. But again, in terms of accessories, giving us 5 portraits is unheard of in the 1/6 scale community. Even Batman came with several different heads. And they seem to be continuing that trend on with their upcoming release of Magneto and Jubilee, which, as I mentioned, both are available for order right now. So if you'd like to add those to your collection in addition to Wolverine, I'll put a link right down there in the video description where you can head on over to either Big Bad Toy Store or Mondo and get your orders in right now. A lot of times they also release timed exclusive versions, which again, in terms of getting bang for your buck, I highly recommend doing. But there you go, my friends. There's my look at the new Mondo 1/6 scale Wolverine from X-Men the Animated Series. Again, I want to send a huge shout out to the folks over at Mondo for helping to make this review possible. Again, all the links that you could possibly need to get this figure will be down in the video description. And finally, please remember, that the real trouble with the world is that too many people grow up. And until next time, this has been Optibotimus saying adios, au revoir, and auf Wiedersehen.